Hi, this is Carrie Hummingbird, and this is Soul Nectar Show. And I'm so excited today. We're going to dive into essence in a whole new way with a whole new multidimensional understanding of essence. We have Jennifer Hough, who is a best-selling author, seer, and lover of life. She made a traumatic transition in her 30s from working for a multinational corporation, doing spreadsheet forecasts and negotiating contracts.
Very serious.
To seeing life, people, and the world as an energy holograph. You don't know how excited I am for this, people. No, maybe you do. Okay, we'll continue. So this holograph allows her to find incongruent patterns in energy and see the quantum leap solutions for harmony globally and in your life. It also allows her to show you the codes for your superpowers and give you the keys to your kingdom so you can further become your own guru. She travels the world acting as a conduit for those who seek the ability to fully live out their purpose with clarity and confidence. And why? Because it became clear that we are ready as human beings to be free, to expand our compassion and fully enjoy our lives instead of living out of fear and control, which is so passé. So we're not going to do that anymore.
Century all the way.
That's so old stuff. So she engages metaphysical tools that bypass the need to constantly analyze by going direct with consciousness. So her work is for those that know it's time to be the change, be fulfilled, and find that something more that is waiting for us. So her website is The Wide Awakening, and she has a show as well, and it's amazing. So I want to welcome you, Jennifer. Thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here, sparkly fairy princess.
This is so much fun. Okay, so we get to strip back layers of reality today as we talk to you. So little hint in your bio as to how you got started, but maybe tell us a little bit more about your awakening, your own wide awakening.
Well, here's the funny thing about awakening. I think awakening happens your entire life because I think you're born for a trajectory, not actually an accomplishment or something that says, you're there. We're little particles of creation. And since we're particles of creation, we were born to create, which means that the journey never ends, which means that nothing's ever supposed to be perfect. So I just want to put that context on what I say because I'm having, I just had profound awakening moments this weekend when one of my favorite people in the world passed away. So, it's for me, it's a never ending, it's just blossoming forward in amazement of what we can do together and on our own and with the multi-dimensions and how much we can bridge humanity back to that way that we all can envision it to be. But I was not that way. When I was growing up, I was extremely shy, didn't want to talk to people. I had lots of eye operations. I wore glasses. I was taller than everybody else. My way of compensating was always to be like a straight A student. And I went to university for economics and accounting. And then I worked for a great big multinational because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. I absolutely never thought that I would be able to see life the way I do now. But I'll tell you, I'm very grateful that I went through that part of my life because it helps me to build bridges with people. It helps me to connect people that there's another way. It helps me work with corporations, for goodness sakes, which is so cool. I mean, that whole paradigm is shifting. So for me, there were several things that happened. One thing happened, it was sort of a subtle thing that I knew I was different in that my entire time in high school, I would spend my lunch hours instead of playing, at that point, I think everyone was playing, it's a 5-card game where it's kind of sort of like bridge. But anyways, everyone was playing card games and I just didn't. I went up in the hallway and I would debate religion, philosophy, and spirituality with my Jehovah's Witness friend. She and I would argue about what seems like the deeper truth or not. So, and then if I wasn't doing that, I was up in the lab with my favorite physics teacher. His name was Dr. Koja. He was from Africa, big round guy. It was awesome. And he called me Huffy. And I still remember it. Or my chemistry teacher, Dr. Hagman, he was amazing too. So my favorite line of his was, "Don't eat the pellets, Jennifer. Don't eat the pellets."
Because this was a concern.
So we would all debate spirituality from scientific points of view and all sorts of things. It was just, I knew I was thinking differently from people. And then one moment that always sticks out in my mind is when I was 17 years old, my dad was watching television at the little family holiday place. And I walked into the room and he was watching the news, and it was about the Middle East. And I was 17 years old, and I came up behind him and I was watching, and I don't know why it just came out of my mouth, but sometimes I just know, well, these days I just know what I know, and then I unknow it to know the next thing, right? So nothing is the truth. It's just a truth for right now that serves what would be in the highest for the most love and the most expansion until the next thing comes along. So that's how I understand it now. But then I didn't understand it because I was 17 and I wanted to be an accountant. So I stood behind him, I watched the news, and I thought, it doesn't have to be this way. You know, I don't understand why we don't just talk. Everyone's got a facade. They've got like this, like I could almost see this film over everyone, this filter, this oddness that was going on. And I couldn't put language to it and couldn't understand what I was seeing at the time. And I actually thought that everyone could see it. I thought my dad could see it too. But instead of my dad agreeing with me that, of course, the world can be a better place, of course, you know, we can find harmony where there isn't any. And he looked at me and he said to me, "Jennifer, pull your head out of your you-know-where, because you're going to find out soon that life doesn't work that way, and that's not the way the world is, and it's a lot more complex than you think, and your brain is oversimplifying it, and you're only 17 years old, and you don't understand." But what I've come to know now that I'm my age is, you know, what is that, like 40 years later? 40 years later, 30 years later, what I've come to know 30 years later is that I guess the accountant thing didn't work out.
There's probably a reason.
Anyways, 30 years later, right? I love adding up numbers. So I have this weird savant thing for it, but right there, no. So anyways, I knew it was a funny thing. And now what I know is that I was seeing even then what was going on with people. I didn't realize it was a skill and that it was connected to multidimensional abilities that every human being has. I for sure didn't know at that point that I would be curious and on an adventure about those codes, and that somehow my being was designed to connect with the original codes of humanity and our future potential, such that we could be the multidimensional beings that we're supposed to be, beyond all these shoulds, musts, and have tos that we've co-created in society. You know, there's a whole other world of total freedom out there to be able to dance directly with consciousness. And what I was doing is going direct. I was seeing what is, like kind of like the Matrix, you know. But the problem is that I didn't recognize it. And I also felt like I didn't belong because I thought that nobody else could see it. I figured out that nobody else could see it. So I had to figure out what the rules were here on planet Earth. You know, let's just figure out the rules here, figure out how I can fit in. I'll just do my accounting thing. I'll marry someone that is really successful and is the president of a company, and I'll have a big house, and I'll have all those things, which I had all of them. I accomplished all of it. And I just kind of looked back and went, well, that was easy. And I'm also not happy. So in the end, what happened was I had to follow my heart's calling. I knew there was something more. I'm sure that you felt that. I'm sure that a lot of your listeners have felt that we were born as a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth. We were born as the heaven on earth construction crew. If you're listening to, everything is magnetic. So if you're here, I know you're part of the heaven on earth construction crew. You just are.
Welcome.
Yeah, hello. So, so what happened to me is you know, after working, I volunteered with street kids in my 20s. And I had a moment where something really quite horrific happened with a girl who was 15 who supposedly had schizophrenia, but what she actually had was tremendously horrible abuse where she just schismed her brain so she didn't have to deal with all the pain. And I took her to I walked her to a lifetime of, you know, being in psychiatric care. And when I left her at the building, I fell down to my knees and I just started bawling. I couldn't stop bawling because I realized that she wasn't alone, that there were hundreds of thousands of people like her in North America. And then there were countless numbers of people out there in the rest of the world like that, who were the victim of a bunch of victims, 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 of just lineages of disempowered, powerless feeling people. And if they could only see what I saw, and I didn't know who I was and how to get to where I was, but it was a changing moment because I was in the middle of the streets of Toronto, on my knees, bawling my eyes out, sobbing. People were walking around me. It was quite odd. And finally I got up and I still couldn't move. And I looked up in the sky like there was something up there. And I just said, I'm not going to be like all the youth workers because they've hardened themselves because this is too much pain for a human being to take in. So they basically stop feeling. And I'm not going to be a martyr because I see people like that in this world of, you know, street kids and social work and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to end up burning myself out trying to help everybody. But I still am called to make the biggest impact this human being can possibly make and be energized by that purpose. I looked up and I said, it cannot be any other way. If I'm alive and you thought, whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever, not knowing then that, of course, creation is everything, everyone, every little speck. But, you know, I just said, it's got to be that I'm here. You know, I was your idea, whatever you are. And it's got to be that I have the capacity to be energized beyond what I've ever imagined. And I can't be here for no reason. And I'm not doing either of those two things. So what the heaven am I going to do? And what I got back was, spend the rest of your life building bridges. Build bridges for people back to their multidimensional abilities so that everybody lines up with the codes that allow them to go direct like you do. And if everyone can have those 24 innate abilities, some of which, you know, many people already have. Most people that would be listening to your show probably have 8 or 9 of those 24 already. But if people can embody at least 18 of them or 19 of them, this world, I mean, it's a world filled with cosmic, exponential bridge builders that transcend the linear. So everything we would do becomes quantum leap in the land of not knowing, rather than linear and strategic and mind-based step by step, which is very slow. So there's actually a science behind living your life, making nonlinear quantum leaps such that, you know, we head the place that we know we can quickly. And that's what I was born for. So
that's so amazing.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I spend my life doing. And the fun thing is that, you know, if I I got very sick, then I ran the largest holistic nutrition practice in Canada. Then that's when I started to be able to see holographically, or at least identify that that's what I had always been doing. And then once I could name it as my, you know, one of the reasons why I'm on the planet, just, it's so amazing once you can name who you are and what you do. Then it opened up this world, and you know, I get to work with some amazing people, known and not known at all, and it doesn't really matter. It's just all the people that are called, that feel like they're in the not belonging club, that feel like they feel this calling, but they don't understand why other people can't see what they see. You know, why they see things from 100,000 feet, and they can see the reason why stuff is happening, and doesn't anyone else see it? And the thing is, no, most other people don't see it. So it's a very,
I had that, because I would always say to my mom, like, well, it's not fair. This isn't fair.
It isn't. It doesn't seem it,
this
right?
thing that's going on isn't fair, and it's not right. And that's not how you treat people. I just know that's not how you treat people. And my mom would say, you're right. But it isn't fair. Life isn't fair. And I'd say, well, no, it's supposed to be. Like, I just knew there was something out of balance or something not right with how people were acting. And I could feel it. I could feel things, and I knew things. And then I would say things. Mm-hmm. And for me, then people would go, well, how do you, and they would react. Like, how do you know that? Or that's just, it's like whatever I could say would like go to the core of them. And I never understood that until now, that I've actually see to the very soul. I can see right into their soul. Mm-hmm. And I know who they are, and I know when they're bullshitting themselves.
Yeah. People who are in the not belonging club have very powerful incongruency meters. So what happens is,
yes,
what we do, some people holographically can see the incongruencies, but you don't see it with your eyes. You see, feel, hear it with your, what I say is your receptor sites and your telomeres and your 75 trillion cells. So it's a physical experience. And it's a thing. That is a thing. For instance, a very clear thing for like a lot of the people that I work with. But, there's school for that. They're not school to learn it. It's school to take it and apply it and really have it be as big a bridge as you can build. You know what I mean? And my job is to assist the leaders who know that they were born to do big things, take exactly what you just described, Carrie, and make it something, like actually flourish. Because it's time for people like you. It's time for people like you all over the world who are transcending the linear. Do you know what I mean when I say transcending the linear?
I do now, only because I've had a few experiences in the past 6 years. Like, oh, I just hopped a destiny line. That's awesome. Like I didn't know that was possible. Or I just changed things around, or I just messed with time. And
yep.
I went to one, I did my last two classes at the Four Winds. We did a practice where we work with we pull universal energy down, and we do a sand painting, and we actually dial back the sand painting by one direction. So, mm-hmm. And I actually felt the change of that ripple back through time before I even went to the retreat. I could feel it. I was like, what do I do in 2 weeks? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. What am I doing in 2 weeks?
You want to hear a crazy thing that we do? So there's a year-long program we do for people that I was just those kinds of people. And the funny thing is, the way we start the program is we start at the end, meaning we bend time. I don't know. Do you know what a Mobius loop is?
Yes. Is that like yeah.
It's a figure eight.
Yeah.
But it's a 3-dimensional figure eight that can fold on itself. So imagine we think of time as linear, and if this is one side of the figure eight and that's the other side, but it's 3-dimensional, it's like and then all of a sudden what you do is you collapse one side onto the other side in the space-time continuum. This could be a little funky or a little weird for some people.
Oh, no, it's so right. I'm liking this.
Cool. So when you collapse it, what happens is we take the end of the program and we collapse it into now, and then we actually do an exercise where they're experiencing the end of the program at the beginning, like what has happened. And we make it real in the physical body, such that the body already has to be accustomed to the biological shifts and upgrades that have to happen in order to be there already. And it's not a vision. It's not anything it's not anything traditional that you would think that we do. It's not some linear new agey process. So it's actually a very pragmatic, what I call multidimensionally scientific experience. And what happens is you're already there. So now what you have to do is you have to let go of what your expectations are and be in the space of not knowing, so that what is unimagined can happen. And so that sets people up for nonlinear quantum leaps all year long. So it's one of the ways we start one of the programs, because that's how this world shifts. That's how it shifts. That's how, some people say, Jennifer, how can you be, so, encouraged in these crazy friggin' times? And it's because I can see. And my job is to get other people to see what I can see, which has a world full of people that just know it's happening. I have those conversations all the time, even with my team. I remember having a conversation, that was in flight school as well, with my general manager and my sweetie pie, who's our operations manager. We're sitting there around the table, and I didn't even know that again, when you're in the not belonging club, you don't know that other people don't see the way that you see. You make a lot of assumptions about people, which, as you start to realize that, it gives you a lot more power, because you start to be able to communicate stuff that you hadn't been communicating, that builds bridges all over the place. And that's what was happening. They were sitting right there. I remember it. And they said, I said, so they said to me, but Jennifer, in this particular class, we're going to talk about operating, actually embodying the idea that, of course, it's a magnetic universe, and of course, what the trajectory is going to happen. If you can imagine it, it's actually already done. But Jennifer, you just know that. You know it. You operate like that every day of your life. We watch you. And it's amazing, because you're unstoppable. You have this unstoppable aspect to you. And they said to me, we don't have that. And I said, that's interesting. I didn't even, this was like years ago. I said, I didn't even conceive that as a paradigm. I didn't even think of that as an interesting paradigm, but all of a sudden that's really, really powerful. So one of the things that changed in them, in the conversation, and for me, was that what became important was to develop and integrate with the codes that had you be able to utilize the multidimensional abilities, that had you just know the trajectories, that had you be able to see the world holographically, that had you be able to experience the trajectory as real, not in your imagination or something that you vision or something that consciousness may or may not. It's not a may or may not to me in my world. It's just going, it is. It just is. It's just a question of going on that journey. So imagine if you walked around that way, and that's a day, that actually was another awakening shift. That's what I mean by they're constant, right? Mm-hmm. So that was another, and they said, you know what? We just realized that's something we desire. We want that. We want to embody that. Let's do that this year in flight school. Let's make that this month's theme. And so we went on the track of how do you live in that much? How do you have no doubt? How do you just know?
That is a trick. Okay, so the whole time you've been talking, my guys have been tapping me on the shoulder and going, listen, because this is how I screw myself up sometimes, because I let doubt come in. I mean, I very clearly, this is where it's going.
Yes.
And I very clearly have that, and I see it, and I know it, and I feel it, and I feel myself doing the thing. It's happening right now, in the future. And then these little I've always let the weevils get in the way. Like the little naysaying voice that goes, oh, well, my story is probably not that interesting, and there's lots of cool people on this planet. And, like the weevils start to go, And then my light goes, "Choom."
Well, let's actually ask what those weevils, or what is that? Like, see, when we bring it into the light and we actually talk about what is it actually? So the first question is, whose is it? Whose, see, those are thought forms. Those are simply thought forms. They're thought forms that exist in consciousness. They exist in consciousness. They're not part of you. They're not yours.
No, but they're in my field. And how'd they get there?
Well, right. But first we got to ask because they don't come into your field without you magnetically
attracting it.
Right. Your magnetics have to be such that, well, it'll be an interesting conversation, right? So there are several things in operation. If we look at it, I might have to do a drawing here. There are several things in operation as we're talking. One thing is societal norms and expectations. We've said that there are certain people that are special that end up doing X, Y, and Z, or Z if you're in Canada or UK. So, or Australia for that matter.
Yeah.
But there are societal norms that say that only special people, even in the world of, spirituality, we say that there are gifted people. People call me gifted. And I'm going to tell you, I tell them not to. Because how can I teach what I teach, which is teaching them about, it doesn't occur as gifts to me when I look at their hologram, when I look at their forward trajectory and the entire hologram of them going all the way backwards, it does not occur as a gift. It occurs like very scientific. There are codes that anyone can tap into that give people the ability to do any of those things that people would say are gifts. I would say an area of genius of mine is being able to build the bridge and activate the codes and assist people to embody those codes, but that came with a lot of practice. But even that can be learned. You understand? Over time. I just have tens of thousands of people that I've worked with on it, so I should be good at it by now, for God's sake.
Well, and I also have noticed that I can actually claim gifts from my former lives. Like I can reach back and go, okay, that time when I was a shaman, I want that right now.
You're magnetic to it. It is in your field just as much as the doubt is. Now, but here's the difference between the doubt and the ability, okay? Because the doubt, human beings, if you imagine, I'm just going to draw, I may or may not show this to you, but it always helps me to actually picture it. Human beings actually have genetic codes. Those genetic codes are both multidimensional and three-dimensional. The three-dimensional two-stranded DNA that you see, the two-stranded DNA basically carries the codes of anything three-dimensional, or the three-dimensional DNA, two strands, carries the codes of anything three-dimensional, obviously, right? So eye color, taste, touch, smell, how tall you are, how short you are, how big your feet are, what your hair looks like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So if that's what genetics do, give you characteristics, then doy that there aren't multidimensional codes or genetics that give you other abilities.
Yes.
And people have natural propensities, just like I have curly hair. You have curly hair. Some people have straight hair. Some people have blonde hair. Everyone has, green eyes, blue eyes, whatever. You have propensities. So in multidimensional genetics, it's exactly the same. You have propensities that have evolved because of use over time. And so those natural propensities exist not only as thought forms, but they exist as a series of tones, shapes. That's why so many people are into tones and sacred geometry and all those things. If you conglomerate all of those things, what you get is the engineering of how you design a multidimensional being that is both in 3D and multi-dimensions at the same time, because it's those tones, those shapes, those geometries, those frequencies that are all tied in together to create the instructions for our amazing abilities that most people don't use. The bridge to those codes, the bridge to those frequencies in our 3D lie in the junk DNA, a more evolved corpus callosum, the utilization of aspects of the brain that need to be more utilized, and receptor sites that go dormant on your cells. And as you upgrade those things, you see, here's the exciting part for me. This is what gets exciting. What I get to see. It doesn't matter. Nobody else needs to know this. It's good to know so that you know how amazing we are and what's possible for you. And maybe you thought that you couldn't, or you're not special, or there's something wrong with you. But I'm telling you, there isn't a human being alive that I haven't seen this in. Every single person has that dormant DNA. Every single person has a corpus callosum that's not at full capacity. Every single person has aspects of their brain that are underutilized. Every single person. So as you upgrade those things, and by the way, it's not by doing lumosity, okay? It's a totally different ball game. It's a multidimensional game. Every single person has those things, meaning that every single person can lose doubt. Because you see, doubt lives at this frequency. When you so just go with me on this, okay?
No, yeah, I'm getting this. Okay.
So when you upgrade your entire biology such that you're a living magnet for the frequencies where those innate abilities live, where you walk out. So I'll tell you how it is for me. I walk outside, I see a tree, it is communing with me instantly. I walk outside, or I know that it's breathing out what I'm breathing in, but it's a cellular knowing. There's a love there and an exchange. So imagine just being instantly in love when you look at a tree. So instead of being steamrollered by life, you're already at the frequency of how loved you are, and you just walk around that way.
Mm.
So if you walked around that way, would you even be able to tap into the frequency of doubt?
I feel like I'm on like a seesaw right now. Not a total seesaw. I mostly am in the state you're talking, and then it'll like waft in like a little cloud.
Well, it can.
So
I hear you. But if you permanently were wired, it's like saying, it'd be like saying I'm tuned to, 1200 FM. Can you hear 800 FM if you're on 1200 FM? No.
I don't think so.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's exactly the same thing. You cannot hear 800. You can't even imagine what 800 sounds like because you're too busy on 1200.
And what would you be like if you were like that? Like if you were just tuned into 1200 all the time, you'd be like, I'm going for it. Like now. You'd be like, dang, let's go.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. A permanent rewiring such that your default is 1200 or whatever the scenario is.
You're just like, let's explore more. Like, let's keep going.
Exactly. Like what else? So you become like an adventurer in this world. Now, why do those little gremlins come in? Why do they present themselves? Well, there's two reasons right now. One is, if you're a teacher, you have to know about the gremlins, because how the hell are you going to teach someone else if you didn't actually build bridges to be able to live at higher frequencies, having experienced those gremlins?
They told me that I'm doing that. Yeah. Okay. Well, it made sense. I was like, all right, so I've got to experience some of this sewer.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is that you're going to transmute it. You're going to transcend it.
Yeah, I know it's not real. The whole time I know it's not real, but
no, it is. No, what we have to do is we have to realize it is real in consciousness. It's a thought form. It's not. It's not real. It actually is.
It is real.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not power. When I say real, I mean like there's things that have power, like actual power.
Yeah,
like love has actual power.
Sure.
Other things.
We pretend
to have power, and they have power if you give them power.
Exactly.
But love has power.
Love is. That
is.
Right? So it's all powerful.
Yes.
Ultimately, it can transmute anything because even that doubt is made of love.
Yeah. And I always dismiss them with love. Like, oh, I am loved through this little thing that wants to.
Yeah, Totally. Yeah. So if we imagine that little thought form, doubt or worry or I'm not lovable or how could I or who me or why me or all of those things are little thought forms floating around. Now, they got invented in a time-space reality way before you ever existed in this form. So that those thought forms are not even yours. Once we truly understand that those thought forms are not your original, they're not yours. They just are not they're not original. Once you realize that they were never yours, they will never be yours, they were really never anyone's because they're a conglomeration of a mistruth. We were told that because we're such pure spirited beings, we started to believe that somehow we're not multidimensional. Somehow we are not built to emanate love. Somehow we are not directly connected to all of creation, which of course we are. We're made of the particles of creation. How could we not be connected? But because we're such powerful creators, when we started to doubt, we actually created a world where the capacity to doubt could exist. I mean, it's kind of paradoxical. It's a big paradox, but once we see that we were the creator of those paradigms in the first place, because we're creators, when we were told we were not, when we're the ones that created the paradigm in the first place, that's how powerful we are. Something that's all-seeing and all-knowing could forget. That's a powerful creator. But that which did that now has to remember. Once we start to remember, we realize that those who came before us created these little thought forms, and they're all very interesting and everything. But what if instead of attempting to transmute the past or burn off beliefs or analyze how come we're stuck, what if we spent a lot more time upgrading our genetics to capacitate higher frequencies such that our default was that we just lived there? Because all of those thought forms instantaneously wouldn't get any attention, because we're already living in more flow, and we start to be much more interested in living more flow once we actually change our default way of being to live at more flow. That's all we become interested in. As you said, once you're on 1200, why would you want to do anything else? So we've spent a lot of time as human beings analyzing and looking at and, trying to get fixed because we're broken and all these things, but it gives a lot of attention to those thought forms. Mm-hmm. What if we gave most of our, this is where I live. It's sort of like the if I was to put it in a way, if I was to say it a certain way, it'd be like, let me help you actually upgrade the entirety of your beingness such that your automatic way of being would just be to be there. And then what would happen is even the cultural egoic thought forms, even the religious egoic thought forms, even the things that we let pull on us because we doubt our piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth, can't pull on us, because all we're interested in is that forward trajectory that we were born to live as a creator. And when you're in that flow, it's just so much fun. Does it mean that there's no contrast? Absolutely not. You absolutely have contrast is so much fun. That's what gives you creative ideas. And does it mean that you feel happy all the time? Hell no. No, one of my dearest friends just passed away, and he's not in human form anymore. And he's one of the sweetest men I've ever had the privilege of. I mean, the kindest. I just love this man. He's just So he's not in the physical anymore. Is he here? Sure, he's here, but that's a different relationship. So I have to mourn the energetic ties that we had that actually exist as thought forms, how we related to each other. Those ties are disappearing, and the feeling of sadness is a feeling of the energetic way I related to someone who had a human body actually going away. There is a loss of that.
There is, yeah.
But there is a gain of like, oh my God, I still get to be around him, but I can't ignore this. It's not that we're not supposed to feel sad. It's a great sad. It's a profound, just a delicious sad. And at the same time, there's this, wow, I wonder what it's going to be like with, human superpowers to be able to dance with him in his new form and how that's going to show up. And exercising that muscle and developing those new energetic relationship, how it all works, what he's going to be to me in my future, if anything, for that matter. It's a lot of the speed at which we can let go of the old really has a lot to do with how fulfilled we feel.
As the whole time you were talking, I was really processing all that, as you could probably tell. I was like, it's all coming in. And some of the messages that I've gotten is that I'm actually channeling love through my body and out into the world. Mm-hmm. And that it's like I'm putting the frequency out there through physical matter, which is somehow more powerful than it's just like it's out there, but like it's important to get the frequency through the matter, and then that does something on this plane that helps. And now I'm piecing together, well, it's because there's all these, we got to transmute. I feel like love transmutes the thought forms that are lower vibration.
It sure does. So can I share about that?
Yes. Okay. So
actually, I'll even share about it in terms of looking at your own hologram. So is it okay if I share that in?
Yes, I'm a guinea pig.
All right.
Well, I'm a hummingbird, but I'll be your guinea pig.
You're a pig that flies.
I am.
How appropriate.
It's totally true. I love it. It's like a fairy tale.
Guinea pig that flies. Yeah. So this is true of some. Every one of us what I'm going to ask is that everyone let go, as I'm saying everything I'm about to say, of any old paradigms that you have, any old filters you have of precepts around energies and matrices and all of those kinds of things. Just kind of come and see with me, rather than trying to confine the conversation with words. Experience what I'm about to say, because it'll take you beyond the confines of our regular, even when we are trying to win the Enlightenment Olympics and know more than everybody else, and find, so many people trying to win I know exactly what she was talking about. Just lose that whole thing.
Let it go.
Let's just play. We're going to play. Okay, so we're going to play with what you see. So let it go so you can see something new and different and experience something. So when I am looking at people, one energetic layer, or one, I don't even want to say energy layer because it's not even an energy, one aspect of consciousness that I see is their Taurus, their transmutational car wash, let's say. The place where the densities come up through the middle get channeled through what I'm going to say is a central channel, but don't necessarily think that as a spinal column like a lot of people do. It's more like an energetic, concentrated amount of light, love, frequency, as much as a human being can capacitate. We're never going to be creation itself in that pure form because we're in dense human bodies. We're multidimensional though, but that's where the most beautiful, luminescent, concentrated energy, and I call it the cosmic car wash, because the density can come up and through, down and through. It doesn't really matter which way you envision it, across and through, but it goes through your Taurus. And what happens is leaders, so listen, this is a really juicy tidbit. What leaders do, and I mean people that are born with that sense of urgency, like there's something more to life. What leaders do is they draw through the dense thought forms of others around them and some old ones in their ancestry. They move them through the central channel, and they are changed for all time. They're sent through the light car wash, and they're shifted for all time such that they don't even have the same form. So it would be sort of like, the equivalent of an entity saying, go home to the light, such that you can realize the truth of how free you actually are, such that now you can come back in total freedom, right? So what happens is when something is a dense thought form, like I'm doubting, meanwhile, the entire universe is happening for you. So the truth is everything's happening for you, and then you doubt. Well, you don't doubt, but the thought form of doubt comes through because you still have the magnetics for that, and then you engage it, and when you engage it and you wonder why you think that and why am I going there again, and you're just giving it more and more and more and more energy, what happens is it grows, it gets bigger, and all of a sudden you start to think that the only thing that there is to think about right now, meanwhile the entire universe is over here going, hey, I'm totally happening for you. I mean, if you want to come over here, there's a whole other, you might want to play hockey, but actually there's a whole Scrabble game going on over here. So hockey, Scrabble, like, you're free-willed, so you can choose, but we don't perceive that. We try to fix this thing over here. But as soon as we let it go, it's like, gosh, but I love creating. And all of a sudden you turn your attention and up, there's something that happens in your guidance realms that actually has it almost enter the vacuum of your Taurus to be transmuted for all time, not just for you, especially when you're working with other people. And the bridge that you built is a direct, so listen, so I'm going to, everybody breathe, just breathe this through. This is like a kind of a big concept to imagine. If you imagine that what that person you're working with is going through, or what you're taking them through, is that dense energy is coming up through your Taurus, and you're already able to envision what it looks like in its most deep understanding from the light. You're able to understand it from its freeing interpretation. And so what you're building is the space between where that dense thought form comes in, and what you're doing is you're building the story to where it's free. And if you allow yourself in the space of not knowing to take someone else on the journey of deeper understanding from a place of everything happens for you in love, and they come along with you as their left brain and right brain start to agree, all of a sudden they're free and their entire biochemistry will shift because you built that bridge. And their magnetics will permanently shift because you built that bridge. Because your biochemistry is based on the paradigms that you hold about life. If a paradigm about life shifts, your biochemistry shifts, your health shifts, everything shifts. And literally the photon packages of light that come out of your cells that actually tell the universe who you are and what you're interested in are now responded to differently by all of consciousness. Therefore, what magnetizes to you permanently shifts. So that is the world in which I live every day when I'm looking at people. So, and when I'm working with people. So that's what happens when you, my dear, are working with people. You are building those bridges.
And yes, I feel that, because I actually feel the heavy energy moving through me. Like I feel it. As I'm clearing them, I feel it move through me. I know. And then I can feel when it's cleansed. Like I feel it's lighter. I feel the air shift. And I'm telling them things along the way, like, hey, this message came through.
Yeah.
What about if we let go of this in order to get this?
Yeah.
You know, and they're kind of making those agreements as we go along.
Yeah.
By the end, the energy is totally different. My client today, she could move her foot again. She's like, I can move my foot. I haven't moved my foot in 6 months. I said, well,
that's what I'm talking about.
The energy shifted. Your vibration shifted. Your cells vibrated at a higher level.
So let me be clear. When we put language around your thing, when you get
thing?
Your thing, anyone's thing,
Okay.
but what you do is a thing, you see. It's a thing in consciousness. What you actually do with people and what everyone's piece of the puzzle is a thing. By putting language around that thing and being able to see it, to be recreate it from from a point of view of seeing your hologram, what happens is it gets like so much more activated. Can you feel that in your body as we're talking about your thing? What's happening is like, yeah, that is the thing.
I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like
it happens all the time. And I feel it.
Right. And I see it. And I've never even had a treatment from you. But that's what I'm saying. All of those things exist in the field. They exist in your hologram.
That is the coolest thing.
Isn't it?
Yes. I like that you can see it. You know, it used to really bother me that I couldn't see because I've been praying for shaman's vision for 6 years now. So I have it. I just don't. I can see it in my third eye, but I can't like see energy. It's like I so want to just see, you know, but we have our gifts, right? That we're attuned for, and these are my gifts. I can really feel and I can know.
So you prayed for shaman's vision?
I did.
Okay, well you just got shaman's vision. I just showed, like, that's what I do. Shaman's vision. So does it matter that it came from you?
No.
Or is it fun to dance with friends?
It's fun.
Isn't it great that you got what you asked for?
It's perfect that I got what I asked for.
There you go. It's way more fun to do it together. If you have your superpowers and I have my superpowers, and my superpowers is to work with people with superpowers, right? So who cares?
Yeah.
It's all fun. It's all beautiful. It's all a dance.
And I think that the more of us that are stepping into that place of creation and we're fulfilled, a place where we're really fulfilled from the inside out, that shifts the whole story of the planet. That from, I've got $5 billion and you have none. I have all the food in my Costco warehouse and you are starving. This is the thing. I feel like that's the unfair part. And it's because it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to live that way on planet Earth. I just firmly know in my heart that it would be so much better if we didn't live that way.
It would be. What we have to be careful of is not polarizing or demonizing those the ones who, no, let me backstep a couple of steps. I was doing a workshop at a friend's house. She's a wonderful person. Her house was standing room only. I mean, it was so powerful. And my marketing person, or I would say communications person, we don't really market. So in the traditional sense. But my communications person was there with her son and her daughter. But her daughter was younger, and she's like, I'd rather count jubes, So her son, who was 12 years old at the time, his name is Anthony. I said, everyone was just leaned in, and we were having a very deep discussion, and Anthony was listening to everything. And I thought, well, I wonder what it's like for a 12-year-old in the room. And the question he asked was, but Jennifer, why do the people in power not help us? Why do the people in power not do the right thing all the time?
Mm.
And my answer to Anthony, as it came out of my mouth, I just looked up and I went, that is the most beautiful answer I think I've ever heard. And of course, not giving myself I'm like, wow, of course, that's the answer. The answer was, as I was speaking to him, I said, Anthony, the reason is because you think they're the ones that have the power.
Mm.
I said, they're not the ones that have the lie is that they have the power. They don't have the power at all. The people that have the power are the ones asking powerful questions like you just asked.
Mm.
And you should answer that question. What can you do? What can you do right now? Because those people, the most powerful energy, the most powerful, that which is love. Everything is made of particles of love. So of course, when you connect to that, you've connected to the power, the fuel behind it, anything, everything. So even for those people that he perceived were the people in power, which of course are not, but if just like that thought form we talked about earlier, the only reason they get power is because we give it to them.
Mm.
Just like a thought form. You want to give your power to doubt? Okay. There's a perfectly good universe giving you everything over here, but if you want to give your power to doubt, go nuts. So, and it becomes habitual in our neurosynaptic highways to keep going over here. So, Anthony, what if you were a catalyst for this whole room of people today to stop giving their power away? That in actuality, those people are the people that are least in love. They're the least in power. They're the least coming from that place. They were the most misguided. They were the most misinformed.
Mm.
They have the least understanding of how it all works. But since we give them power, it seems to work for them because we give them power. But what if it actually doesn't work that way? And in us taking our power back, we become the example and change the environment around them so that maybe not in this lifetime they change, but in future, the next lifetime, we have actually entirely changed the environment or the soup in which they swim, such that we have actually freed the very people that we've been pointing the finger at. Because as soon as we polarize, we give way too much power to someone over there. Like, this mess is your fault. No, it's not. You were a president. You were a attorney general. You were a shyster. You were a rapist. You were all of those things, along with all sorts of good things too. You helped to cause us in some lifetimes. We all helped to cause us all to forget. The cool thing about that, though, is that we still energetically embody all of those lifetimes. So if we want to bridge those things, we contain them. And as we move through our lives, we're actually at light speed. I mean, in the work that we do, hundreds of belief systems at a time, you can transmute through that cosmic car wash. And what's so cool is that if you can do that within yourself, you're actually doing it for consciousness, for the world, for humanity, and you're giving the greatest gift to those that have forgotten the most deeply. And our job is not to polarize and be the righteous ones. Our job, we're giving a gift. We're building a bridge for the ones that have forgotten the most. And that is an act of love. That is a deep, profound act of love, full circling the lives of the very ones that are most pained. And the cool thing is you can do it without even knowing them. You don't have to be in the misery of their presence.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And it's like as we clean up and as we ascend our vibration, that our vibration is automatically, just without doing anything, is helping others as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so, you're upgrading the entire matrix.
We're upgrading the whole thing.
In which we swim, right?
Yeah, we're changing the water pH balance.
Well, the cosmic swimming pool is changing. Woohoo!
So I love everything. I mean, I could talk to you for probably hours, and I know you have other things going on, but I could probably hijack you forever. But, so I want to give you an opportunity. I know you've got something coming up that you wanted to share. You've got a workshop coming up, free talk, I think, and share with us what about that. What is it that you're talking about? And is it, because is it juicy like this? I know people want to come on. This is
Well, we've got a couple of things coming up. One of the things we have coming up is all around, it's about living a magnetic life. I have, there's this paper that I wrote when I realized that I really like to call what we do like practical woo-woo. But it's not really woo-woo. To me, it's multidimensional science, and it's applied for everyday life. And it causes people to have quantum leaps. And I was really realizing, when we start assuming that everyone can see the things we think, and I thought to myself, if I was to write down 7 things that I do, I don't know why I picked the number 7, but 7 things that I do that are that change my default, but that are quantum leaping my default. And there are things that I do every day that I just take for granted because I get told to do them, and I'm like, but anyone can do them. And sometimes we teach a lot of them we teach, and some of, we make them aspects of our programs. So I wrote a whole summary of that. It's called the 7 Steps to Living a Magnetic Life, and it sort of summarizes those most important things to me, and it's really super powerful. But and anyone can download it. It's free. I actually created it so anyone can have it. So you can, and we can have it. You guys can have it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And so the other thing that I did right after that, when you download it, you'll actually see an invitation to a webinar, and that's where the rubber starts hitting the road. It's a free webinar that we are doing around how to live that magnetic life. And I really recommend that you listen all the way to the end, because I do an activation right at the end that's so powerful, and it sort of takes everything, and it's an introduction to something we call Get Out of Your Own Way to Success and Abundance. It's basically everything we've talked about here, and then applying everything we've talked about and going on the pragmatic journey of making that upgrade to your physicality, and transmuting hundreds of belief systems at a time, and marrying the left brain and the right brain. That's what Get Out of Your Way is all about. But this is like an amazing intro class to that entire shift about success and abundance. And you will be active. You definitely will feel stuff from doing it. So
I love that.
Yeah, it's really delicious. Totally delicious. Yeah.
Well, this is really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that gift. I know that's on your website at thewideawakening.com/soul nectar.
Yes, we did it at /soul nectar. Just for
Soul Nectar. So I'm a Hummingbird fan. Can go out there and get some of that nectar. That's so awesome. So I would really love to ask you more questions, but I'm going to let you go. I don't want to let you go. I'm so curious about how you see and everything, but I'm going to have to. Okay.
Well, we can do a whole other topic another time on that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming on, Jennifer. It's such a blessing. And I always like to end my broadcast with kisses. So here I go. I'm going to bring my kisses to everybody. Mwah.
Nice.
Kisses out in the world.
Felt it.
Hummingbird kisses. And thank you so much. And for everybody else, sign up for that with Jennifer. It's going to be amazing. I just know it. I'm going to sign up, so I'll see you there. And I will see you guys next week on Soul Nectar.
Yay. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.